we're thinking not exactly we're going to shift the lineup change. I'm trying to get them prepared to whatever we're facing is we're pretty good at versatility. So I don't want them to get so stagnant, thinking like, okay, it's going to be like this way every time. So I'm just trying to, we've been experimenting with a lot of different lineups, as you've seen in different times of the games. And in practice, I had a lot of different combos going into practice on Monday. So I think that she got the message that, we can go a lot of different ways. We can, in some ways, we can be a little bit bigger. We can be a little bit smaller. And I think we're just trying to land on maximizing that when maybe the matchup calls for it. And I think to do that, though, you have to continue to condition the mentality, because you can have, a role that's been pretty consistent, and all of a sudden it gets upset on its ear, and if you're a vet, then it's like, well, what happens? And so I just did a little bit more. We've been talking a lot about it since we got together in June, but now as we're hitting different matchups, I think we're trying to start to see what's settling. So not really the cat out of the bag. I think it's just been more, I want them to really keep embracing that, and sometimes that's uncomfortable. And we're learning a lot. I'm constantly learning about, what I'd like to see and how I'd like to see it.
A couple of days removed from the game against Maryland now, what response have you seen from the team, after the way that first half went, but then the way the second half went?
Yeah, I think, the same, which is I'm really appreciative of. It's been really the same. I mean, that really was, really the first collective bad stretch of minutes turned into a bad half. But I think we're all just really thankful that they responded the way they did. So they just came back to work. I think as you would like them to be, wasn't quite as festive as after a loss, but that doesn't mean fire and brimstone. You're just bummed, right? You just know what might have been, what could have been, but you can't stay there. If you stay there, then you don't get better. So I was just really pleased they came back and went to work, and it was kind of business as usual. I think just a disappointment that we didn't show better in the first half, but it was all forward thinking. We talked a little bit about obviously what went wrong and right, but then you have to kind of switch that page pretty quickly to Illinois.
Halfway through the season now, 15 games in. What would you say this team's identity is at this point? What would you say, how happy are you, self-assessment, how happy are you with your coaching job through 15 games? I feel really thankful, and I feel good. I think, if you would have looked back when the job change happened, I don't think that, a lot of people would have bet that we might have been here. I think we can critique that coulda, woulda, shouldas, but there was a lot to replace in many, many ways. A generational player, a Hall of Famer coach, and so I feel like I feel really blessed that it's gone this well. And I think in all the games that we've lost, and it's just been 3, right? Mm-hmm. With the exception of Maryland, I mean, there have been more good than negative, and I think we have improved in the categories little by little, maybe not as much. So I feel good. I don't feel good that, we've lost 3 games, but you can't have my job if you, don't want to chase undefeated and chase great. So I feel good about that. I think our identity, I think they're pretty resilient. I think they're gritty. I think they really they bring it. I mean, I think the identity is we're young. I think we see the future often, right? And I actually think they're fun. I think they're fun to coach. I think when, it's going, pretty well, I think they're a fun bunch to watch. I think they play with joy. So I guess I'd say gritty, resilient bunch that's pretty fun. But overall, residing, I think we've seen a lot of youth that has done things that has really carried us in key parts of the game.
We just talked to the freshmen. Is that something big that's kind of defining this team this year? Because we've seen freshmen with this team. Hannah played a lot as a freshman. Caitlin obviously played a lot as a freshman. But having this many true freshmen get a lot of significant minutes seems like it's kind of unique to this team from what you've seen in the last 2 years.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the unique part. And, they all really contribute really pretty importantly. And I tell you, Kelly Levine does too, even though she hasn't gotten in. It's a little tougher role. But, boy, if you watched our practice, the one who's talking and positive and leading, so she's got a huge role to play. She just isn't getting the minutes because we're a little bit, we have a lot more depth there. But, yeah, they're pushing. They're pushing the vets, and they're eager, and they're pretty talented. And I think once they continue to refine their, what this level takes, and when you have that off season of getting bigger, faster, stronger, more lean, more fit, what it takes to really go against the nation's best, I think they have a really good shot to be really pretty special.
The top of the Big Ten's obviously gotten a lot of headlines, but the middle of the conference, there's obviously a thick logjam of teams that, at worst probably feel like they're NCAA tournament teams and have room to grow. In that regard, how pivotal are these kind of toss-up road games?
Yeah, I think they're important. I think right now is whether you win or lose it, there's still a lot of runway left. I think there's a tendency the sky's going to fall on any of these league games, for the Illinois press, the fan base, for all of those games. But I think that it's still pretty early. Different people design their schedules, non-conference differently. Some stack a record where they're undefeated and they haven't played anybody. Some challenge it. And then when you get into it, every conference is just such a different, animal once you get into it. So whether we win or lose it tomorrow night, and I felt the same way about Sunday, I told myself in the office, is like there's just a lot left. And so, yes, I think it can be very beneficial for your confidence, especially with a young team, to get it, and I think we need it. I'm not saying that. But I think there's a big race in the middle. I think in this conference you have two storylines, all the, West Coast, right, with all the Hollywood, if you will, but you have a lot of really great teams that on any given night can really challenge those teams. And I think there is a lot of, a lot of similarities, a lot of close, really good teams. And I think it's going to come down to minutes and seconds of different games that are really going to position who's going to be in that upper half and going to position themselves to get into the tournament. So it's really fun. I think with a conference as big, as they get bigger, that's what's going to happen. You're going to have, if you get fortunate enough and you have a few fall your way, or you're really good, right? But you stay, Ohio State and Maryland, they're undefeated, and UCLA, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
USC has
So
one
you have
loss.
that many people that are in the league, undefeated. But USC isn't undefeated overall. They got beat by Notre Dame. But it's just, that's fun to look at that when they play each other. But hopefully the others will start to upset them. So, I think the middle of the race is very intriguing.
The past few years, you guys have had, your Caitlin's, Gabby, Kate, even McKenna and Monica, players that you knew were going to be in the game late in the game. This year's team's been a little bit different, where you guys have talked about, we don't know who's going to be the one to step up and be the big performer. As a first-year head coach now, you're the one doing the substitutions at every game. How difficult has it been at times to find the right line, to find the right player when you don't know what's going to happen?
Yeah. Obviously the head has the final line, but we've had your assistants have a lot to say. We did that my whole career too, but you can override, right? Yeah, I think that's been the challenge, because that is something that hasn't happened for us for a long time. Lisa, she played a certain amount of kids, and we didn't deviate from that. So this is different. It's a different way to look at it. It's a different way to roll. We're, deeper.
And I am learning that and trying to figure out, even day by day in practice, who seemingly, when we practice our late game situations, or when I change things pretty quickly, who's tracking. And I try to tell them, so many times athletes, and I'm pretty sure I'm across the board, this is true, they always think it's when they get into games, whether they don't get enough minutes, to really show themselves, or they don't, can't get in a groove, but the auditions happen every day, right? Those are the times, like, you're really trying to, get that lineup that's and getting the person that you're really feeling like, hey, she can handle that moment. And we've had, as you can see, there's been a lot of different weeks where I feel like, yeah, it's the one. So I kind of go by the game, how it's flowing. I think most people probably would, but we do have a little sometimes scripted, you want to start out can we get this people in different times, but I'm not a big script person. I'm more kind of my gut for the good or the bad of it. But that is what we're trying to, in my mind, as I talk to our staff, is getting closer and closer to, this is kind of what I think we need to just stay with so they get comfortable with that. But with that being said, what Ava alluded to is I do want to be able to use different lineups against different teams that I think that could give us the, best opportunity, and not, sometimes, the last 5 years, you just force our lineup on the rest of you, right? But sometimes we had Caitlin they always were trying to figure all that out. So then you'd have a role player that could just star because the kitchen sink was being thrown at Caitlin. Now I want to be a little bit more versatile and kind of match up what I think those guys have and what we have, because I think we have so many different things that I want to make sure we showcase.
Of all the stuff that did go right in the second half, it seemed like the offensive flashes that Aaliyah showed resonated pretty significantly. Obviously, that's not all you have to do on the basketball floor to get your minutes extended. Just where do you feel she's at particularly right now with what she can provide?
Yeah, what I love always about Aaliyah is she's, she can defend. She's got a high IQ and she can score it. And she can score it every way. She can get to the rim. She's got a really good sense. She's fun. She's a little flashy, but obviously her three-point shooting is stellar as well. So we've had to bring her back slowly because we do a lot of testing on metrics of kids coming back from their injuries, and you got to be a little careful of that load. So she's getting closer and closer to the peak, but I think she's a big catalyst because she can play a 2 and she can play the 1, and sometimes kids can't always go back and forth, and I think we're getting closer. It's that just, it seems simple, but playing 2 different positions when you're young is really hard because if you don't know it in the other, you mess up everybody else. So just throw them in there. They can play 2. Let's go there. Well, if it throws up, you can't play zone sometimes because this person doesn't know the back line and this person knows the front line. She usually knows the front line. Now she's in the back line. So it's not as simple just to be like, oh, let's just play all those guys together, right? So we're coming. It's taken a little bit of time, especially since Aaliyah didn't get cleared to play until right before we went to Cancun.
You talked about Aaliyah. Just where's Kenise at? Or are we going to see her this year?
She got hurt. When did she get hurt? Right before the tournament, right? Yeah. And I think her rehab's gone a little slower. Mm-hmm. So I don't think we'll see her this year in meaningful minutes. But I know she's, doing what she needs to be now, certainly. But she won't be a factor this year.
We should probably ask about Illinois before we
Yeah.
let you go.
Yeah.
What do you see in Illinois, and then obviously a couple injuries for them? How does that change the game plan?
Yeah. Well, the injuries, are they out for sure? I mean, you never know.
I think so.
It's like, everybody plays this game, right? Which is strategy, which is great. It's not a critique. Shauna's a really good coach, another native Iowan. And they play,
pretty fast. I love their forward center, Bostic. We recruited the heck out of her before she went to Michigan State, and she went to Illinois. Just a really nice post player that can face and do it all. Genesis Bryant is tough as they come. She can shoot behind a ball screen. She can finish. She has crazy finishes. And their actions are, again, they're just a little complex because they'll throw a lot of ball screens and zoom action and flip handoffs, and you have to really communicate and keep true to your scheme. So I really respect them a lot. They've been hard to guard for us ever since Shauna got there, and they defend. If their kids are out, obviously they're not quite as deep, but they've really been in some close games that just haven't fallen their way. I'm sure Shauna's glad it's at home. I wish it was at home. I'd feel a lot better, but I think it'll be a good road test, especially coming off of our Maryland game. I think, just like we learned a lot in Maryland, it's more fun to learn when you win, but I really think we learned a lot, obviously, of what not to do in the first half, or what do we got to do to change. Me too. And then the second half, what do we like, So we're going to have to handle, some speed by their guards. And they have I think really one of the best forwards in the conference. If not the country, in Bostic. I really think she's that good. She's very, very lethal. So, got two hungry teams, right? We're really going back to Dargan, your question. We're in the middle, and you can't take too many L's before you kind of shift to a different level you don't want to be in. So I think it's going to be a really competitive, fun Big Ten game, because we got great athletes going for it on both sides.